Welcome in, Jason Priester, Clemson Insider. Appreciate everybody that's tuned in tonight. Running a little bit late there. My bad. I'm blaming it on the wife over there. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor over at A-Glass. 2 locations. PD, one in Florence, one in Sumter. Take care of all your auto glass needs to do replacement, repair. Get yourself a free quote today. myaglass.com. Take care of all your glass needs, period, probably, not just auto. They specialize in a lot of different stuff. Second decommitment today. Considering, the way Clemson's season has gone, he's probably fortunate there's not been a few more. 4-star safety, Blake Stewart, decommits. It was kind of, there were a lot of rumors swirling around about him back in September. It comes out today. I saw one report that he had I think from 24/7 that he had quietly visited Miami a few weeks ago. I was told he was in Vanderbilt this past weekend. I haven't confirmed it, but that's what I was told. One of 3 safeties committed into class, the lowest rated one, but his rate, he's probably rated a little bit too low. He actually fit a crucial need for Clemson, man. He gives you a lot of length. He's fast. And if you watch his tape, man, he can cover. Something that Clemson has struggled with mightily from the safety spot this year. Whether he was coming or not, whether all 3 of those guys signed, in December, the other 2 were Contavion Anderson from right up the road in Dorman and Caden Gebhardt from up north. Whether you ended up with all 3 of those guys or not, I think safety is a spot you were still going to have to hit the portal for no matter what. But if you just go by the ratings, I think most of the services have him, I think pretty much all of them, maybe except one, have him bumped down to 3-star status. But so if you just go by the ratings, you probably don't really think it hits that hard, but he's probably a little bit better than the ratings suggest. But, with some of the rumors that was swirling around him a few weeks ago, shouldn't have come to us that big a shock, to those of you that follow recruiting. We'll see if Clemson tries to add another one in this class. Wouldn't shock me if they just got to the finish line with the 2 they've got and then see what they need in the portal, because I think you can have several portal needs, come the off season, with the biggest one being at the biggest position on the field. And depending on what happens after the season, you could have a mass exodus, and that would only increase, your needs there. But decommitment number 2, he joins Dre Quinn, who decommitted back in September. That was a pretty big one too. I told you she likes to chew on the bed when I put her back here. Decommitment number 2. He joins Dre Quinn, who decommitted back in September. Quinn was the one of 2 defensive ends committed, by far the guy with the higher ceiling. If you watch J.R. Ardrick, there's a lot to like about his film, but man, he's a developmental guy. He's not somebody that's coming in here and starting day one. So that's another portal need. No matter what, even if you get everybody back by some miracle, to me, I think you still need him. Seeing how the ones you have played this year anyways, particularly, I'm talking about one in particular. But was anybody as surprised as I was that Clemson was a favorite against Duke? I mean, I get it's only 3.5 points, man, but it's almost like Vegas has not watched this team play they've not watched them play all season long. I think they've been favored in every game. They're like 2-5 against the spread. No word yet on whether Klubnik will be back. I lean towards thinking he probably will. It was good to have an open date over the weekend to let him get healed up as much as possible. But it's not your typical ankle sprain. I've been told it's a high ankle sprain, so those typically take a little bit longer to get back from. And I saw so many people, kind of dogging on Klubnik for not playing against SMU because he had a little old ankle sprain while Kevin Jennings was able to play on, his little injury there. And I don't know. I just think you're comparing apples and oranges there, man. Apples and oranges. People don't come back after 7 days from a high ankle sprain. Some people actually need surgery. That's what Tristan Lee's dealing with right now is a high ankle sprain, and he's barely played, for most of the year. But, man, if you're Clemson and you want to get a bowl eligible, this is a game you better win. And I don't even know that they will. I don't have confidence in this team to beat anybody at this point outside of Furman. Heck, a week ago, I might would have given them better odds to beat South Carolina than anybody. And then South Carolina plays with their hair on fire against Alabama Saturday, although I didn't think Alabama played all that well. But South Carolina's defense played like we haven't seen them play all year long. Their offense still looks – but that defense played very well. I was a little worried that might be a trap game for Bama, seeing as they had played 4 straight ranked teams coming into that game. And I think it kind of was a little bit, but was impressed with South Carolina's defensive play for sure, man. They played like they had not played all season long for the most part. You're going to get a night game, when Florida State comes to town in 2 weeks. I hope people are happy about that. But a night game nonetheless. That is, I was a little surprised, the way these two teams' seasons played out. They're getting not that they're getting a night game, but they're getting one of the big slots. It wouldn't have surprised me if they had a night slot on ACC Network, but I think they got the ESPN or ABC slot, maybe, if I'm remembering that right. I have to go back and check, but that one did surprise me. Poppy. Yeah, Clemson women's basketball picked up a 5-star today. That gives them the top ranked class in the country. I don't watch much women's basketball, so I can't really comment further than that, but that's pretty impressive in year number 2. How many decommits will they have? We haven't even fired anybody yet. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard to put a number on at this point. Some of that will depend on what happens the rest of the way. Some of that will depend on, staff changes made after the season. Every guy I've talked to says they're fully locked in, but, that can change from one day to the next. I don't think you lose. I'll be surprised if you lose any of those offensive linemen. I've talked to all but one of them. I've at least touched base with all but one of them, I do believe. They're pretty dead set on coming to play for Matt Luke. I touched base with Tate Reynolds. He visited just this past game, the SMU game. Talked a good bit with Bradley a couple weeks ago. Because if Clemson decides to move on from Garrett Riley for whatever reason, it sounds – that's one I think might could impact Tate. I'm not saying it will. I think it's just a possibility. Don't know that it impact Bradley too much, although he's the lower-rated guy. People don't get all that excited about him. He's a little undersized, which hurts him in the ratings, man. But, the kid's pretty good. He just Golly, just set a program record, I think, for most touchdown throws or something in school history over there at Spain Park. He's a gamer, but he gets knocked for he's only about 6 foot tall. But I think he's solid either way. I think Kentavion Anderson's probably solid either way. I think no matter what happens, I think the Gebhardt kid, really wants to play for Tom Allen. That's when that hire was made. That's really when he really started having interest in Clemson. They don't have a running back. I think you're good with the linebacker, the Riley kid that just committed over the end of last week, whenever it was, last couple of days. A lot of hate for that kid online, man. A lot of hate for that kid just because of the – never mind. A lot of hate for that kid, and it ain't just because he's a 3-star. You can tell there are a lot of people out there that have not watched that guy's film. He feels a definite need for Clemson because he could easily – slide into that Sam spot, nickel spot, tiger spot, whatever you want to call it, and he can move. He's got real good hip flexibility, man. He's not slow at all. He could be a really good linebacker for you, but I think you're good with him either way. I think you're probably good with those wide receivers. Naheem Burrows is not a guy that I've ever been able to get on the phone, but I do have a relationship with a guy that plays at his school that I've had a couple conversations with, and just kind of based on what I've heard from him, it sounds like Naheem's really locked in. I think Gordon Sellers is pretty locked in. His teammate was one of the last ones I talked to, Leo Delaney, last week, if I'm remembering right. Sounds like he's fully locked in, but again, you don't ever know, man, because you don't know what staff changes are coming, and there's some coming. Again, you don't have a running back committed, so I mean, I don't think you obviously don't have to worry about one decommitting there, but you better worry about starting to run up. You better worry about running off some of those young guys that aren't getting any opportunities right now. Money is flying all over the place. Crazy buyouts. Next head coaches and staff will probably double the total spend to change. It is wild times, man, and it's a little off-putting if you're my age or a little bit older. I've long maintained. Make no mistake, man. The NCAA went way too long without paying the players a piece of the pie. Man, this landscape we're in now is just insane. Penn State just fired a guy that made the semifinal last year. LSU just fired a guy that hasn't lost one. He's had all 10 win seasons except for one. I'm kind of curious to see if some of these contracts in the future, aren't maybe structured a little differently. Because these schools can't keep on paying these crazy buyouts, not in this era. So I am a little interested to see if these future head coaches or these new deals that are coming in the offseason, because it's going to be a crazy coaching carousel. Because you very well might have Auburn open up. I think there's a possibility, although I lean towards thinking it doesn't happen, but I think there's a possibility Oklahoma opens up. Florida's already open. There's we saw rumors of Sark wanting to go back to the NFL over the weekend, although he shot him down. Maybe Texas opens up. So it could get really crazy, and I'm kind of interested to see how some of these deals get structured and if the buyouts aren't tapered down a little bit. They probably won't be. A lot of folks proposing a portal QB for next year, and I don't see it. Dabo is loyal. CV has been patiently waiting instead of hopping in the portal, and he looked decent in his first start. Your take? I absolutely think Clemson has to take a quarterback in the portal next year. 100%. If this season went according to plan and you got CV in some, blowout games and he looked solid, fine. But the way this season has played out, if you're Clemson, you can't go into next season telling your fans to bank on hope and potential at the quarterback position. Vizina looked pretty good for the final 3 quarters against SMU. He looked terrible in quarter 1. But, man, he didn't look very good against North Carolina. He didn't look very good against Boston College. And SMU came into that game with only one team in the country had a worse pass defense than SMU did, and that was Navy. I think it was Navy anyways. It was one of the service academies. So, I mean, I don't know how much stock to put into that one start. I definitely don't know that you can pin the hopes of an entire season on it. If Klubnik's out another game or two and CV plays and he still looks really good, then maybe that changes the thinking a little bit. But I absolutely 100% think Clemson needs a portal quarterback for next season, and I lean towards thinking that is the direction they're going to go. Baseball team. I did not go to the scrimmage Saturday. I had to come home. I was at the Bananas exhibition Thursday night. I've been to 4 different intra-squad scrimmages, and I've been pretty encouraged by the pitching. And they are not pitching Canuck, McGovern. There's 4 others that they're not throwing, or they didn't throw during the fall. They were only throwing bullpen sessions. So, I mean, I've really been impressed with the freshmen. You got a couple of those freshmen already throwing 95. The transfer from Alabama, Ariston Vesey, he's hit 97. Drew Titsworth needed 11 pitches to get out of his one inning, and he pitched the first time I saw him. He only needed 9 the second time. I have heard Michael Sharman, the Tennessee transfers, had a really good fall. I saw him twice. He had one really good outing, and he got roughed up once. The one he got roughed up in, some of that was, I want to say there was an error in the inning or something that extended it, but all the runs ended up being earned, and he come back the next inning and gave up nothing. But I'm trying to think of who else. Nate Savoy he looks like he's going to be just a bomb in the middle of that lineup. He hit 3 home runs in 4 games the weekend, or 4 scrimmages the weekend before last. Ty Dalley's been really good. The Georgia transfer, Bryce Cleveland's looked really good in center. Him and Jack Crichton have both been playing center in the inter squads, and both of them have looked really good defensively. In the exhibition against Alabama the other day, Clavon, who I think is going to be the center fielder, was in center while Crichton was in left. And I think Dalley's your right fielder. Gaffney looks like he's maybe on pace for a bounce back after a rough end in the last season. He's hit a couple of long balls and like had 3 or 4 extra base hits total in the scrimmages I was at. Really the only negative that I saw was the catching. The catching had a bad weekend. I went to 3 scrimmages in a row one weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the catchers had a pretty rough weekend. It was Gerald, Savoy, and Steelbird doing the catching those days. They were kind of rotating, and they had a rough weekend. But I was very pleased with the freshman pitchers. Eston Simpson's one of them. Danny Nelson's one of them. Those are the two guys that throw hard. They got Peyton Miller, who's trying to be a two-way guy. He's looked solid. Dylan Harrison. Matter of fact, Miller hit a home run in one of the games I was at. Dylan Harrison's been solid. He's a two-way guy. Haven't seen Nick Frusco yet, who was probably the highest rated of all those pitchers, but I think he's a guy that'll help him this year. It'll be interesting to see how many of them can actually help this year, man. But I know Backett was looking forward to seeing how those young guys responded Thursday, because a bunch of those freshmen pitched against the Bananas with the packed house and the crazy environment. And I say all of them held up really well. My take, something Dabo is tired of losing. If he and staff aren't confident in QBs, they look for one. I lean towards thinking that's the direction they're going to go. There's still a ways between now and December, so that can always change. But as we sit here today, the last week in October, that is definitely my line of thinking. And it's not really a knock on Vizina, because we've not really been able to see what he's able to do outside of the SMU game. And again, it's a small sample size. I don't know how much to take from it, to be quite honest. I almost wouldn't mind seeing him get another start at some point just to see. Unfortunately, that's not how this thing works. But, I just don't think you can go into next year, like I said earlier, telling Clemson fans to rely on, hope and potential, not after the way this season's played out. $60 million. Not that he'd be on the hot seat anyways. Dabo's portal work this round is going to start some jaws flapping. All the he won't adjust cry. Yeah. But, I mean, to be quite honest, he's not going to really have much of a choice now. I mean, there's just going to be so many gaps. And I'm not even factoring in who might leave via the portal, because there's bound to be some of them after this kind of season. If you don't factor that in, I think you need a quarterback. I think you need a minimum of one offensive lineman. You might need two. There's a lot of good young talent on the roster, offensive line wise, and there's some really good ones coming in this current class. But I think you're probably going to have a guy or two to bridge the gap to get to some of those guys. I think you're okay at receiver, assuming nobody leaves, particularly if you could get Tristan Smith back another year. I think you're good at tight end. You might need to bring in a veteran running back, depending on, any attrition there. On defense, I think you need at least one defensive end. You might need two. I think you need maybe two safeties now after the decommitment today. I think you could probably benefit from bringing in a corner. I'm not 100% sure at linebacker. Maybe you could benefit from bringing in one there, but with them playing the 4-2-5, they're probably good with Sammy and Jeremiah Alexander and Kobe and those guys. But man, you're going to need a bare minimum of half a dozen and probably somewhere closer to 10 or so, because there's going to be some holes on this roster. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You didn't sign a corner last class. If I'm remembering, I'm pretty sure you didn't sign a corner last class because they all got poached. The two you got coming in this class are they're not the tall, long, athletic type guys Mike Reed typically brings in. And that's why I think they're trying to add a third. I think Ashton Hampton when it comes to the length part. But, man, they've got to get better on the back end because, man, those safeties, you probably got too much inexperience playing at one time. But, Ricardo Jones has just been hit or miss. I don't know how good Hannafin is in coverage. He's physical, but I don't know how good he is in coverage or how good he will be in coverage. They just had some issues on the back end, particularly with those safeties. And if you listen to Tom Allen talk the other day, man, you can kind of read between the lines some of those comments. My prediction for the Duke game, it'll come out Friday. I haven't decided yet. I do them every Friday on the site. Watch Polo Anderson play in person. That kid is long and can fly. Yeah, he can move, man. And like I said earlier, he's got the length that they kind of desire and kind of need that they're kind of lacking right now. He was my favorite of the three. I was told, I'm assuming you're talking about Stewart. After he committed, he wouldn't come to school at Clemson because of money. I'm certain it's playing a big role, but I can't imagine Clemson or Dabo paying the most for any one player. You don't really have to pay the most. You got to be in the ballpark. You got to make your offer be competitive. And this is one of the things that when I say Clemson's issues run much deeper than who's on the staff, they're kind of foundational. This is an example. Dabo typically likes to give the bigger money deals to the older guys who have been around and put the work in. Not the kids coming out of high school. And it's cost them with a bunch of guys. In this rev share area, it's not like they can't really afford to make better offers. You probably take a little bit off the top from the older guys. But if you count rev share and NIL stuff, man, there's more than $20 million invested in this year's team. So it's not like they can't be competitive. It's just Dabo's kind of made it to where he wants the guys to come in and be able to earn it. And I don't know if that's sustainable. I don't even know if it's doable. Look at the amount of kids that got poached in the 2025 class last year. Pretty much all of them were because of money. You look at a kid like Tay Harris, and it wasn't even like this massive amount difference. I mean, it was enough to make him go somewhere else. Clemson's offense has been rather boring. It's not very creative. A lot of the stuff that Garrett Riley wants to do, he likes to. Number one, dude does not run the ball enough. He abandons it too quickly and too often. Number two, when he does want to run it, he wants to do stuff that I don't think Clemson's offensive linemen really excel in. He likes to run those counters and stuff where you have to get the linemen out pulling, man, and they're just not that good at it. Why they haven't gone back, they just hat on a hat and some zone stuff, I don't know. But the Riley hire has turned out to be a disaster so far, man, unless something changes in the next 5 games, and I'm not expecting it to. It's been a disaster. 100% disaster. Hoping it's going to be the Tristan Smith show this weekend. I would expect Smith to play a lot, but one thing you got to keep in mind is he only plays one receiver spot. He does not play both of them. He plays the same spot TJ Moore has been playing. And those two outside spots are not interchangeable the way they used to be in the old offense. So all the people out there griping about Cole Turner playing so much and not Tristan Smith, they're playing two different spots. Turner plays the spot over there behind Wesco, while Tristan's been the backup to TJ Moore. And getting Tristan on the field means taking TJ Moore off. But yeah, with Wesco out, you can move Moore over to the other side and get Tristan Moore involved. But that is one thing to keep in mind, that he really only plays that one spot. It's the one spot he's comfortable in right now. Did anything stand out about Tom Allen's most recent press conference? That's putting it mildly. He's, another thing I've seen a lot of people gripe about is the lack of aggression and why they're not blitzing a lot. Man, if you can't cover on the back end, you can't really do a lot of blitzing. You are gonna get burned. So I think he's had to be very cautious with how he goes about doing that. But yeah, when he was asked about the athletes he's looking for, and he started going into detail and how that's going to be a priority this offseason, yeah, it was very telling. Never was. Yeah, I'm not talking about anybody specifically, but I've seen that. I've seen the word diva used several times and prima donna. It's kind of ridiculous, to be quite honest. If you look at the kid's history, man, he missed 3 games his senior year, and that's all he's missed pretty much. Kids played through everything pretty much. And anybody that was at the game, if you watched him come out in pregame and actually try to go, it was readily apparent he wasn't going to be able to. It took him about 5 minutes, and he was done. I mean, it was obvious he couldn't plant. And if you're a quarterback and you can't push off your plant foot, yeah, you're in trouble, especially behind Clemson's offensive line. Yeah, I just looked again. It had it. I just glanced over it earlier, and I just saw ESPN or ESPN2, but every one of them's an option on there. Yeah, I think you'd absolutely like to keep all the receivers, the ones committed and the ones on the roster, and get Tristan back for another year. That'd be great, because really all you'd lose is Antonio. The receiver, made no mistake, man. The receivers have had a few too many drops this year, but it's just kind of been par for the course with the way the rest of the season's played out and the way the rest of the teams played for the most part. But man, I think all three of those guys they've got committed are studs, man. I think all three of them are gonna, you know, add something. That Naheem Burrows is electric with the ball in his hands. He's a absolutely killer on punt returns too. Connor Selman can fly, um, and Gordon Sellers is one of those bigger bodied, longer type guys that can go up and get it. Yeah, I like all three of those guys, man. That right now the receiver room's a strength, man, but you got to keep them all. Decommits. What about players on roster who jump ship, enter the portal, maybe to pump brakes on fire and Spiller East and say, that's just something you're gonna have to live with, man. There's got to be some tweaks made to the coaching staff. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Number one, I don't think. To me, there's three guys right now that if it were up to me, I'd be moving on from. I'm also not, and that might end up being more than that. Not that again, as I've said many times, not that I think the staff's littered with incompetent or bad coaches, but I don't know how well they all work together, particularly on the defensive side. Sometimes I wonder if Matt Luke's coaching style and philosophy kind of meshes with what Garrett Riley wants to do on offense. I just don't know that you got the best fits there, but there's got to be tweaks made to the coaching staff. And fortunately, you live in an era now where if you have a decommit, there's a tool that you have that you can go grab somebody out of there in December and address that need. So, I mean, at a certain point, you just got to bite the bullet and do it. No, I asked him about it after the SMU game, and he said it was in the works. So, I mean, they probably won't know about that until later on. Outside of D tackle and tight end, doesn't it look like the other groups need one? Yeah, like I said earlier, I think you probably need around 10 or so. I think you could use maybe 2 offensive linemen, maybe even 2 safeties, a corner. We're already up to 5 right there. I think you definitely need an end. There's 6. I think to me, I think you need a quarterback. There's 7. I'm not sold on running back, but I think that could be one potentially, depending on what happens from here on out, and if any of those guys leave. Personally, I'd like to see Gideon get more involved and get him a little, as ready as you can to kind of take over next year. Something they should have been doing a month ago. So, I mean, I would put a question mark beside running back. But, yeah, I mean, I think you probably need somewhere between 10, 11, 12 if you want to be competitive and have a shot at winning the league next year. Where do I rank the Florida State job if it opens up? It'll be one that's highly coveted because they give Norvell the resources to go out and do what he needs to do. He's just not been able to take advantage of it. And that's what coaches are looking for these days, the resources to be able to win. I actually think Vizina's a better runner than he showed against SMU. He's got to add the blocking in front of him, but I mean he's not going to be some burner. He'll be more like somewhere in between Boyd and Lawrence. He's certainly not a Sean Watson or anything running the ball. Does Dabo entertain LSU? I didn't know they were in talks. I don't think Dabo gets a call. And even if he did, no. Actually, this is not a sports specific show, man. It's my show. I can talk about whatever I want, to be quite honest. Gerald struggled behind the plate on Saturday too. It's a terrible throw on a steal to second and a couple. Maybe he's injured. I don't know that he's injured. I think if he was injured, he probably would be held out of fall ball, particularly since they have Steel Bird who can catch, Savoy can catch, Ty Marshall can catch. I hate hearing that he had another rough day Saturday because he had some moments a couple weekends before that too. What would I say to people like you who want to do what you do for a living and a year out of college at the moment? You got any advice for him? So am I. You got any advice for him? He wants to do what I do a year out of college. He wants to do what I do for a living a year out of college. She said, do something else. She said, don't expect to get rich. No, I didn't even go to college. So, it's not necessarily a requirement. It probably helps, but I went for a little while and dropped out. And even then, I wasn't majoring in communications or anything, but I hadn't even declared a major yet, to be quite honest. I kind of got into this by fluke. There was one of the Clemson sites was looking for somebody to help them cover baseball. I think it was in 2016 or 2015, one season. And, just one of the it was the SB Nation site, and they don't pay those guys hardly anything, the regulars. It's just something they kind of do as a hobby and for fun. And so I reached out about it, and they wanted me to write up a season preview to kind of, to see my writing skills. And so I wrote it up that night and sent it in. And I think it was on the site the next day, to be quite honest. And so I did that year. And after baseball was over, they wanted me to write a football column every week. And I did that for a little while. And then when I wanted to write more, because I was only writing a couple of things a week over there at SB Nation. I actually built a website so I could empty my brain and write anything I wanted to. And I hadn't been doing that long. And one of the other sites saw my stuff, liked it, and hired me. So, I mean, my story's a little bit more unique and more fluky than most. My advice would be to write. If you want to write, my advice would be to write, even if you have to build you a cheap website. And there's some you can do for free. They don't look all that professional, although I'm not a very tech savvy guy, but they don't look all that professional. But that's what I would do, and pour content into it and put it out so people can see it. How much coaching changes? I can't put a number on that. I'll just say I think there are going to be at least 3. The last mock draft I saw had TJ Parker still going in the first round. So, I mean, that doesn't mean that's where it'll be come December. I thought that was rather interesting, to be quite honest. Do I think you would hire Jeff Scott back as OC? Why would you want to? Would be my question. He's never run an offense. He's never been off. He's only been he was the co-offensive coordinator, but he's never run an offense. He's never called plays. All I hear all about all the time is the nepotism. Would that not be the same thing? Particularly for a guy that's never been a primary play caller. But to answer your question, I don't know, because last I heard, he didn't even want to get back into coaching. But I mean, if it's me, he's way down on my list of candidates. You hired Streeter, who had some experience, but it had been a long time ago and at a smaller school, although his offenses were pretty solid. But he had not called plays in a long time. The game had kind of changed since he called plays. Didn't work out. He's probably more of a scapegoat than anything for having a terrible quarterback that season. Then you go bring in Garrett Riley, who had a little bit of experience, not a ton. Never called plays under any other head coach but Sonny Dykes. Then he gets here and it's been a disaster. I mean, I just don't know why you'd want to go that route again. I think Clemson needs somebody established and very experienced. After TA's comments the other day, I'm going to chill on looking at star ratings. You are in the minority there. If he says they can play in his defense, I'm going to take his word for it till proven otherwise. Yeah, there's several coaches on that staff to get the benefit of the doubt with me when it comes to evaluations. Will banana baseball help Clemson revenue?
Penn State just had another decommitment. Will banana ball help Clemson revenue since Clemson football is going the way of other ACC stadium attendance? Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by that last part. But that's set up by the Bananas and run by the Bananas. They keep all the ticket revenue. They stream it on their platform. I think Clemson gets the concessions. Maybe that. I mean, sure they make a little bit of money on it, but probably not as much as you think. What would Dabo have to do to be on? Dabo's seat has not even started to even come close to getting warm. Well, Abdul Carter was a 4-star coming out of high school. Tom Allen got the most data. Yeah, to me, stars are just one piece of it. There are a lot of kids out there that you see they're 3 stars and they're ranked outside the top 350, top 400, and then you look at their offer list. Usually that tells the tale more than anything. Who's offering them? Who's recruiting them? Who wants them? Certainly stars are not the be-all, end-all because, even part of that's political. You can get a bump because of working out at a specific camp. You can get dinged for not working out at that specific camp. I mean, there's just a lot of that goes into it. You can get bumped for having been committed too long because committed guys don't sell subscriptions. And these recruiting sites and recruiting services, that's their goal, to sell subscriptions. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're all rigged and no good or anything. I think they're a good tool, but they're just one. That's just one tool of several you can use. Think they need to either you get a paid scholarship or you get NIL money and you pay for your own education. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm not sure with that Supreme Court ruling a couple of years ago that would even be legal. The only thing that's going to really change anything is if you were to let the players unionize and collect a bargain, and that means making them employees. And I think it gets there at some point. I just don't know when. Dabo was the end coach for a long time. Do you think that some of his outspoken views that the media ran with hurt his brand and ultimately recruiting? Not really. I mean, I'm sure there are some exceptions to that, particularly with the way some of the things he says gets twisted and printed out of context sometimes. But generally speaking, no, I don't. I think the game's changed. I think they were slow to adapt with the NIL stuff, man. I think the NIL, even when they wanted to get all on board with him, and it was a crap show. It was not very well organized. I think you had IPTE and the 110 Society button heads and pulling in opposite directions. It was not a very smooth running operation. Even once they wanted to get, kind of all in on that aspect. I think those are some of the things that have hurt. I think not being willing to offer high school kids the same kind of money, or at least in the ballpark as some of these other schools, is hurt. There's a lot of things that are going into it. Always felt like coaching should be separate from the guy deciding on the compensation. It's a conflict that's hurting the roster management and recruiting.
Yeah, Jordan Sorrells plays a big part in that, and he's not a coach. So, I mean, I don't know how big of a problem that is at Clemson.
Do you think Dabo would get rid of a lot of the inside? What are inside hires?
I mean, if you're talking about Tyler Grisham, man, if you guys haven't changed your mind on him, I don't know what to tell you. The receivers have been pretty good the past 2 years. He's been killing it on the recruiting trail. Then you got CJ Spiller. I guess that'd be one you're talking about, and Mickey Khan maybe since they were buddies. Outside of that, who we talking about? Matt Luke's not an inside hire. Chris Rump's not an inside hire. Nick Geeson's not an inside hire. Mike Reed wasn't an inside hire. Tom Allen's not an inside hire. Garrett Riley's not an inside hire. Even Ben Boulware. You got Tom Allen working out of that room and kind of overseeing things there. The on-field assistants are loaded with all these nepo hires the way some of you guys make out. But yeah, I do think the staff's going to get tweaked for sure because I don't think all those guys work well together.
I know people laugh at bringing Chad Morris back, but that was the most creative offense this school. You ever wonder why he's not really got any more opportunities? I mean, he would be way down at the bottom of my list too. I mean, I just think there's so many more better options. See, this is what I'm talking about right here. I want Tristan instead of Cole. Again, Tristan's really only comfortable playing that one spot, the spot that TJ Moore plays. So when Turner comes in, he comes in over there on the other side that Smith's not catching or comfortable playing. So it's not an either or type of thing. The receiver spots are not interchangeable in this offense the way they were in the previous offense. I know this sounds silly, and congrats to Parker, but I feel like getting married is going to be your focus, not football. Yeah, see, I don't know that I buy into a lot of that either. I mean, these guys have lives outside of football. He got married on a bye week. I think you can, I mean, all of us multitask every day. I don't know who would fit in Clemson's offense as an OC, though. What you mean fit in Clemson's offense? This is the scheme that Garrett Riley put together. This isn't the same offense that they were running before that. You hire a guy to bring his own. Taj Boyd is an assistant quarterback coach that has very little to do with the actual coaching and developing. And why do you want to fire Chris Rumpf, man? All those defensive ends outside of T.J. Parker have gotten better under him. Hell, even Cade Denoff's gotten better. Shaheem Lawson is blossoming. Will Help so much better than he was last year at Purdue. Yeah, I don't get that, man. And again, like I said earlier, some of you guys just will never admit you were wrong about Tyler Grisham, but I mean, it is what it is. it's not necessarily development failures. It's more about the misses on the recruiting trail, man. And when you've had guys leave via the poor, even depth pieces, maybe most of them turned out they wouldn't be, but maybe one or two of those guys end up being your starter for next year, and you replace them with high school guys, and then those guys ended up getting poached. It's more about just having the lack of guys than it is development, in my opinion. Easy and Gideon both look good. In addition to Randall, honestly, need to go back to hat on hat or line play. Looks like might really help in the run game. I wouldn't hold my breath. I don't know what Easy looks like. I don't know what Gideon looks like. Chris Vazina's got more carries than those guys this year. It's kind of absurd, especially after the way last year played out when you did the same exact thing with Phil Maffa. You would have thought they had learned their lesson, but apparently not. Maffa gets hurt and he has to play the back half of the season basically with one arm because they've not developed anybody or gotten anybody behind him ready. You don't have to go out and give Davidson or Easy, 12, 13, 14, 15 carries a game, but you need to give them 3 or 4. Even if you don't want to do it against LSU, you got to start working them in, starting with the Troy game. And maybe the way that one played out, you couldn't do it the way you wanted to, man. But we're now 7 games in, and we're barely seeing those guys getting any carries. That right there is a failure of the coaching staff. There's been at least a game or two where Randall's playing like 70 something snaps, and those other guys might play 1 or 2, 3, 4, and get no carries. That is absolute insanity. Even if Randall's only getting 10 carries, which is absurd, you need those other guys on the field getting at least a little bit of experience. And then number 2, man, God, why would you want to risk running them off? Because I think that's a distinct possibility the way this thing's played out for those 2 young guys. Yeah, I don't get I had somebody tell me today that Rumpf would be on their list too, man. I just don't know that I'd have him on mine. I get it. Parker's been a disappointment, but maybe that's more about Parker and less about Rumpf. He's had some struggles on the recruiting trail, but that's been about money pretty much. That's not been about his ability as a recruiter. And, those kind of decisions come from either Dabo or the GM or whoever makes them. Hearing that Zach Foster is really impressed, maybe the best freshman Brown Ale House signed. I can vouch for both of those. I went to the exhibition the night before the SMU game, and both of those guys impressed. I was blown away by Chase Thompson's basketball IQ. I think both those guys are going to help this year. And Foster, man, he might very well end up being the best freshman Brownell signed. Could Richardson get a look at OC? Not the way this is played out. I don't see how you can do it. When Riley was hired, they both have kind of air raid backgrounds. So you kind of pair Richardson with Riley and get him groomed to kind of be the next guy when Riley moves on. But the way this thing's played out, I don't think there's any way you can do that now. And, it kind of sucks for Kyle Richardson because I don't know how much I doubt this ain't on him. I think the tight ends have been pretty good actually when they get a shot. But I think you got to go away from the air raid stuff, man. I think it's just been an abject failure and you got to go in a different direction. Awful to not let Randall get a TD last Saturday. Only 2 players in history in front of him to score touchdowns in multiple games. Travis and Sammy, what's the thoughts going? I got major issues with the rotations at running back and how they're being used. I was willing to give them a pass for last year and, thinking they'd learn their lesson from that and not repeat it this year. But, man, they have absolutely 100% repeated that same thing this year. It's almost criminal. I haven't really done enough research into it to give you top 3. I can tell you 2 I wouldn't want at the top of the list is Jeff Scott and Chad Morris. Actually trust Kyle Richardson, but Dabo can't afford to have another. Yeah, see, that's kind of I think Kyle Richardson's a very bright offensive mind. I just, he's an air raid guy, which I think's a problem in and of itself right off the bat. But yeah, the way the Garrett Riley thing's going, man, I just don't know how you can do it. You worded it perfectly. You just can't have another in-house promotion and risk it bombing. Yeah, as far as softball goes, I've heard they dog walked every exhibition, every opponent they've played in an exhibition. Softball, for whatever reason, gets to play a few more exhibition games than the baseball teams do. I don't know the reasoning behind that. If one of y'all do, you can fill me in. But, yeah, I was told they dog walked this was a week ago when I was told that. But, up until then, I'd heard they'd been dog walking everybody they played. We need to start hiring buddies of Dabo. Matt Luke, regarded as one of the best offensive line and coaches in the country. Chris Rumpf, very highly regarded, well respected defensive line coach. Same with Nick Eason. Both Eason had multiple stints in the NFL. You don't stick around in the NFL long if you suck. Mike Reed, considered one of the best corner coaches in the country. It's not like this staff's littered with bad football coaches and nepo hires. Heck, I don't think Mickey Kahn's been as bad as some people make out. I think Grisham's been a lot better than some of you make out. I mean, I think they've found a good balance numbers wise. I just don't know that the staff works well together. But for me, I think you got much deeper rooted issues than who's on the coaching staff. You're on your 3rd offensive coordinator since 2021. You're on your 3rd defensive coordinator since 2021.
You've you've brought in a new offensive line coach, a new defensive tackles coach, a new defensive ends coach, a new linebackers coach, but yet the results stay the same. Maybe you got to look a little bit deeper than a couple of assistants on the staff, man. Maybe the issues run deeper than that. They're actually foundational. On other successful teams, they have a running back that would hit the hole quickly and run with reckless abandon. That opened up the passing game. Do we have anyone coming up? I think you got a couple on the team already like that. The problem is you don't have a hole for them to hit that quickly because the offensive line is not opening them up. No, I don't necessarily think they have to be NFL coaches. Again, Nick Eason's got plenty of NFL experience. I think the defensive tackles have gotten worse each year he's been at Clemson. I mean, I don't know I think you need to go out and find guys. Let's say you hire a new offensive coordinator. I think you need to go for whatever changes you're going to make on the offensive staff. I think you need to go out and find guys who have the same philosophy as that offensive coordinator and who excel in coaching a style or the style that offensive coordinator wants to play. Same thing on the defensive side of the ball. You got a defensive coordinator in Tom Allen. Whatever changes you make, you got to find guys that that align with his philosophy. Otherwise, you're just going to have button up the heads. Yeah, you got a 5-star quarterback right now who has absolutely not lived up to the expectations. He took over for a 5-star quarterback who did not meet the expectations. So yeah, I mean they're absolutely not the be all end all. I like Ben Boulware, but we really need him to step up on strength and conditioning, or we need to get him. He has nothing to do with strength and conditioning. To me, that's another critical hire. The strength and conditioning coach is fixing to retire. He's been there forever. Same guy running that department has been running it the whole time. Dabo Sweeney's been there and before. Joey Batson's his name. He's lost some assistants over the years. He lost his top lieutenant, who was the get back coach for Venables Smotherman. I think he's at Virginia now. And you look at the way Virginia plays, and I'm wondering if that maybe isn't a bigger loss than maybe people thought it was at the time. But whenever they make this new hire, when Batson retires, I mean, that's going to be a big one, man, because I think Clemson's been getting pushed around. And I think that goes back to some of that foundational stuff. That is a hire that you've got to get right. The last Clemson receiver that went to the NFL, I think Bo Collins got signed by the NFL, if that's what you're asking. But if that's a knock on Tyler Grisham, I think when he took over, the receiver room was a disaster, an absolute disaster. It was full of Clemson had kind of trended towards recruiting those bigger bodied, slower type guys for the most part. and there wasn't a lot of variety in that room. It took him a while to get it sorted out. Jeff Scott's last batch of receiver targets pretty much all ended up to be busts. Both Collins guys, Dakari and Bo. Frank Ladson. It's taken EJ Williams like 6 years to make an impact somewhere. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. But it took Tyler Grisham 2-3 years to get that room straightened out and get it the way he wanted. Troy Stellato was actually his first recruit. So, I think it's way too early to be judging him off of that. But talk to me in 2 or 3 years and let's see what the last drafted receiver was, because you're fixing to have a couple, assuming you can hold on to them. Rotations are generally dictated by the position coach. Tell me whose job is to see that Bryant. See, you want a speedy guy that can take it to the house returning punts. Antonio has not returned punts since he got hurt, by design. And he is not faster than Bryant Wesco, not by any stretch. But they didn't want to risk him messing that hamstring up again. Yeah, I was there at his introductory press conference, or whichever one. I think it was his introductory one, whichever one it was, when he was calling it the Dirt Raid. It has been anything but that. I answered this already. Go back and count how many coaching changes Dabo's made. Yet you still got the same problems. Maybe the issues are deeper than who the coaches. I'm not saying you don't need to make some tweaks to the staff. I think you do. But I don't think they're all bad football coaches. You telling me Mike Reed's a bad football coach? You telling me Nick Eason's a bad football coach? A guy that stuck around in the NFL as long as he did, or Chris Rump or Matt Luke? The offensive line blows chunks this year. But Matt Luke's considered one of the best O-line coaches in the country. It's not all the coaches, man. I think you got foundational issues. Stuff with the process, stuff with how you acquire talent, maybe even the way you practice, strength and conditioning stuff. I just think you have to look deeper than who the assistants are and start looking for some of the areas in the process that need to be tweaked or upgraded or just flat out overhauled. No, I don't think college football is all about players and coaches and scheme. Sorry, man. Dabo turned Clemson to what it is mostly based off the culture he created there off the field. That has nothing to do with the, on-field stuff. But there are a lot of things in their processes that I think could be addressed. Again, the way you acquire talent, the way you maybe stop waiting until a kid's in his junior season before you offer him. Maybe stop making a kid visit before you offer him, which the kid that just committed never visited for. So maybe that's the linebacker that just committed, the Riley kid, he had never visited before. His first visit's coming up this weekend. So maybe that's something they're already looking at. I mean, again, strength and conditioning, man. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into a college football program that goes deeper than just players and coaches and scheme. I mean, you look at the players on this roster, man. This team should be so much better than what it is, particularly when you look at. I mean, you look at the corners, man. They should be more productive than they've been this year, just based off what you got on paper and the coach you got. Same thing with the offensive line, but I don't think those guys really. I don't think their strengths kind of measure up with what Garrett Riley wants to do on offense. A lot of it's about match, fit. And I'm not sure all these guys fit what Riley wants to do, what Allen wants to do. I think I've been pretty clear, man, about what I mean. I think I've been pretty clear. You can be just because you can be a pretty good football coach or a really good football coach, but you might not work well with the guy that's been hired to oversee you and run the defense or run the offense. I mean, it goes deeper than just being a bad coach. I mean, again, Mike Reed didn't just forget how to coach. Chris Rump didn't just forget how to coach. Neither has Nick Eason or Matt, any of those guys, man. None of them's forgotten how to coach. And with some of the portal losses you've had and some of the guys that have been poached in the last recruiting classes, you don't have any depth. Not the quality depth that you used to have anyways. Quit playing, girl. Yeah, I don't. To me, man, you kind of either got that quality or you don't. I don't. I think some coaches can maybe it takes maybe sometimes the coach can draw it out of you, but I think if you don't already have it deep inside of you somewhere, I don't think you just become a dog overnight or over a year, man. I think you either got that personality trait or you don't. And there's not very many on this team right now. Yeah, you can't hold the money to the end of the season. Without Deshaun or Trevor, his culture don't mean it. And without his culture, he don't get Trevor. So I mean, what's your point? I don't. I mean,
I don't think Clemson's culture has anything to do with Alabama or Kirby at Georgia or Ryan Day at Ohio State, man. You just don't get it. I'm sorry. Again, without that culture, you don't get Trevor Lawrence. The whole point of doing that and building that was to create something very different than what Saban had at Alabama or what Mark Richt had at Georgia and what Kirby built since he's been there. Same thing with Urban Meyer and Ryan Day at Ohio State. You know, I don't think it matters what any of them think about any of it. You know, it worked perfectly for Clemson. And I just don't think it's working as well as it used to in the past, and probably needs to be. There's some parts or aspects of it that need to be kind of updated with the changing times. It's as simple as that. Play your future players. Stop. Why would you bench Randall, man? He's been one of the bright spots on the offense when he's got room to run. I mean, why would you want to punish him for something, that is the entire team's fault? You don't have to bench Randall to get the other guys involved. It's the last one I'm taking from you about this because I'm not arguing about it anymore, man. I don't think, we saw DJ go to 3 different schools and didn't get no more damn developed than he did at Clemson. So it wasn't a Clemson issue, man. I don't think it's a Clemson issue with Cade. I think he is who he is. I mean, we can agree to disagree and leave it at that. I never said you couldn't be a dog and a good person that fits the culture. Never said that. I just said I think you either got dog in it or you don't. I think that's a personality trait you either have or you don't. Now, sometimes it might take the right coach to pull it out of you, but I think if you don't have it already, you're probably not going to have it. I mean, what the hell are we talking about outside? I mean, yes, it's about the results. I mean, that's what we've been sitting here talking about for 90 minutes is the results, man. Would he consider letting Tom Allen go? I would hope not. Not after 1 year. Whew, that was a fast 90 minutes. No, I ain't done. I thought you was going to be quiet over there. Well, if you want to talk, come on over here and talk. Argue with this guy that wants to argue. I think Allen's got it. I think Allen's got a pretty good read on what some of the problems are too, especially from a personnel standpoint, man. But my whole point through all of this is that I think you got issues that go deeper than personnel, deeper than coaches. I think you got some foundational issues, man, that need to be addressed. Some of that goes back again to how you acquire the talent. You know, which
goes in a lot of different directions. Like I was talking about earlier, man, when you decide to offer a kid, maybe offering a few more than you do now. I mean, golly, I think Clemson offered 70 something guys in the last cycle. It's a very small pool. And when you miss on a guy, you feel it a lot more than these other schools do. It worked for a long time, but it's not working anymore, particularly when you are having the kind of season you're having right now. You can probably still sell it as long as you're getting, 9 and 10 wins a season, man. But when you're 3 and 4 after 7 games, you probably need to kind of rethink how you do some things. Again, I think some of that probably goes back to strength and conditioning, might even go back to the way you practice. I've kind of heard some things about the way practices were, in the spring and the fall that probably weren't conducive to as much success as you wanted to have. I think there's a lot of things you look at, and I think the biggest question is, outside of tweaking the staff and getting the right guys in place, can Dabo identify those issues? I think that's going to be one of the biggest questions of the offseason. Yeah, I think Lenore's has got some of that dog in him. I think he's an example of having, I don't think Mike Shula's a bad football coach. I think he's a terrible fit for Lenore Sellers. I think it was a terrible mistake for Shane Beamer to hire him, but I don't think he's a bad football coach. He's kind of proved in other places that he can be successful, at the right spot with the right guys. Right back here next Monday, 7 p.m. I think Brandon's going to be back next week. Want to thank our sponsor over at A-Glass. 2 locations right here in the PD, one in Florence, one in Sumter. They take care of all your auto glass needs. Give them a call today, 803-607-9130 in Sumter. That's the only number I got right in front of me. Or get yourself a free quote, myaglass.com. Check us out on the site. We'll get you all ready for Duke this weekend. And whoever asked me about the prediction, look for it on Friday. It'll be out sometime Friday. I usually do those on Thursday night. ClemsonInsider.com next Monday, 7 p.m.